Hope you guys are ready. Because today, we're going to be crafting some maps. Well, it's going to be a little bit harder than this. Welcome back to my map, Space Aces. Last time we identified some major and minor gameplay issues with the game. After that, we are now fully equipped to begin the Enhance phase, where we will be changing parts of the game to solve these problems. While we're at it, we're going to be making everything that already exists much better. Our goal for today is to remaster one arena for each game mode. We also want to make sure to closely follow this checklist. We want maps to be unique, and we can utilize gimmicks to get there. We want each map to be easy to navigate, no getting lost, if we can help it. We want to avoid adding places that are easy to camp. We want to make it as hard as possible for somebody to utilize and abuse corners of the map. It would also be useful to have each map be used in more than one game mode. We don't want to leave any class stranded, meaning that every map should have a good spot, or at least a moderately okay spot for each class, so that no class can dominate or none can be completely useless. And finally, of course, it has to be fun. That's the whole point of making this map to begin with. We will also be generally increasing the size of maps compared to previous versions of Space Aces, and we're even going to be adding a skybox, which will really help sew the map together and not make it feel like a giant floating island. Making arenas is not as simple as it sounds. But to break things down, I think it'd be good to separate the building process into two categories. And those categories are layout and textures. And the reason we're doing it this way is really a lesson I learned a long time ago. Sometimes you go building relatively large-scale, detailed structures, and then you go to playtest, and they play very poorly, which leads to two solutions. You either remake everything, deleting tons of work and progress, or more likely you'll just go with it, which eventually leads to poor gameplay. So to get started, we're actually going to be making a developer resource pack, and specifically resources for developers. This will include textures for blank, gray, and orange blocks, as well as a simple glass see-through block. Oh, and I can't forget the generic line of sight blocking block. Using these, we can focus strictly on the layout of maps, and then once we're happy with that after playtesting, we can add detail. Alright, so now that we have some default textures to work with, let's get started. But we want to get the vibe of the arena first, and now we will use a tool that is quite polarizing. Using AI, yes, the evil buzzword technology of today, we are going to generate a handful of images to get some general structure ideas. Now we're going to be starting with the map Ruins. So I'm thinking of asking about a sci-fi ruins to get a baseline. Well, these three images are kind of what I'm going for. Let's look at similar ideas at night. Okay, I love these. Definitely closer to the vibe that we're going for. Just enough light to draw your attention, but still fairly dark. I'm thinking for more of an abandoned factory or reactor, so let's try incorporating those. I like them, but I feel like we want a bit less urban and see if we can incorporate the stone theme from the original map. I'm not sure about this. Let me reword what we want. Okay, closer, but not really as ruins as we want. This is interesting for sure, very moony, but still not ruiny enough. Okay, still fighting the ruins part. Again, I like the river in this one. Let's try overgrown ruins instead. Okay, this is more like it. This is what we're going for. Also great, maybe we can ask for it to be less urban. Okay, I think this is kind of as close as we can get. Now, none of these are really perfect. And here's the problem with AI images, is you can immediately get 90%, but that last 10% can be kind of brutal. Thankfully, we can fill in those gaps ourselves since this is just concept art. Before we build too much, there are a few things we can take a look at for the layout of an arena. First of all, the size. We are looking at 128 by 128. What's neat about this size is that we can use a map, the vanilla map, to get an overview of the arena. You may have also seen this command block contraption, and with it, we can spawn a block display entity, but what's cool about it is that it's inverted and makes a great skybox. Of course, just a black concrete texture blown way up won't really work, but imagine a higher resolution image of a beautiful sky scene. Anyways, we also want to keep in mind the point of the map, and that's to serve a game mode, or even several game modes. Originally, Ruins was a team deathmatch map. With the reflection of how the game modes are working, we're kind of thinking of changing TDM to be more of a kill amount game mode. That being said, I think it'd still be good to have a starting spawn point for each team and several good spots for either team to spawn depending on circumstances. So I plotted out both the main blue and red spawns. And the first thing I would like to do is to add a big void in the middle, like the original Ruins map. After that, I really think height is going to be a large part in the design of this map, so I want to immediately have a higher platform by the red spawn. Jumping ahead a little in time, I have the basic layout of all the paths. So there are 3 lanes, so to speak, of this map. The protected cave path, the more open and short bridge path, and the slower but higher industrial path. Depending on your playstyle and team composition, you can choose which path you take, and I think that'll add a healthy amount of strategy. One thing I learned from playtesting the old setback mode was that because the maps were all so linear, the gameplay only consisted of running to the point. So my goal with these paths, even though this isn't setback, is to prevent cases like that. After a bit more cover and line of sight blockers, this is how the arena is looking. We don't want you to be able to see the whole map from any single point. By poking several smaller holes in certain spots, we can give ways to see enemies without it being so open. Some places, like this bridge, are still quite open, so this is where the boxes come in. We will throw down a few, and immediately there's a lot more strategy to crossing the bridge. These will be replaced with cool unique boxes and debris later. Doing the same treatment throughout the whole map, this is how it looks. And now, the map is starting to come together. We made some minor and major tweaks, and this is how the arena is looking. But you never really know for sure how an arena will play until you play it. Will some areas be overwhelmingly open, or will too much of the map feel like a cluttered mess? Let's find out. Oh, and please ignore the missing textures and models. After playtesting, we had some issues. First of all, on top of this structure, you get insane lines of sight. You can see almost the entire map. There was another line of sight issue with this spot, and by adding glass, it still makes it a powerful spot, but lets other players know if someone is there. This spot under here didn't feel very well, so I just dug them all the way down, and now it's actually an obstacle. And then on the blue side, there really needs to be more stairs so that the flow of the map is much better. Now that I'm generally happy with how the arena feels, I think it's okay to move on with the texture process. Due to the sci-fi nature of Space Aces, I made the executive decision to do two things. One, make the art style 32 by 32. The amount of extra details that quadrupling the amount of pixels gives makes it so much easier to do work with. I'm also a huge fan of the Malice maps, and he uses 32 by 32. And two, because of that choice, I'm going to replace every texture in the game. Some might be minorly changed, like for example the andesite used for the rocks and ruins will be upscaled, but most will be completely new to help shape the sci-fi nature of the map. This is a huge undertaking, and I've been hard at work in the background. Expect to see more shorts about specific design decisions in this regard. Well, with those decisions made, I went ahead and painted the map with the first layer of textures. The first round is just the main baseline of blocks with not a lot of detailing. Here are some interesting texture choices. Both andesite and tuff are just upscaled and color adjusted. Some textures can scale really well, and it's good to save time where we can. Red sandstone is actually the same texture from before, it just has been upscaled with extra grit using noise. The vines help bring in a bit of green that is lacking in the build, but they also help with moving around the arena in some places as well. I love these slope and half slope models. Sci-fi builds need tons of round shapes, and these help get there. Now that most of the blocks we need are placed, we are ready to move on to the... And so from the last clip, we've added a bunch of details. You may notice a few different things. First of all, we have these grass and these stone bits. These are actually just stone pressure plates. And one of the things I kind of want to do with this map is be as efficient as possible with our resource allocation. That way we can have as many textures as possible and keep using things without it being too similar or stale over time. And so part of that actually is these chunks of rust. You see that they're resin clumps, which means we can place them actually on any block whatsoever. But I also used a randomized texture with them. So if I do like a 3x3 area, we see we get a couple of repeats, especially here, these two, but we get generally a handful of different textures. And so by utilizing randomized textures, we can save a lot of different models without using a ton of different blocks. And so doing all of this work, creating a bunch of different blocks, different models, different textures, a lot of work went into just this map. And so I think the best thing we can do is actually a little bit of a montage of not just this map, but of two others we've worked really hard on. And really, that's kind of a wrap for this episode. Now, there are some things that we would like to add more details to, and, well, map design can always be tweaked and tuned over time. But I think in general, we've got some really nice maps here. And with Moonbase, Frigate, as well as Ruins, we've got enough for a handful of game modes that we can implement and balance over time. Now, adding more maps, we're going to be trying to create those over time, but that's going to be kind of in the background that we do that. And over time, we also will be adding more textures as well as details that we can utilize throughout all the maps. So over time, you might see some little details change here and there, and don't worry about it. We're just trying to make it as good as possible for when we do release this map. Before next time, I'd like to give a little bit of a sneak peek on the topic, and that's going to be class reworks. So in general, the classes are going to have pretty similar abilities, and especially the classes with good abilities or good weapons, they should be pretty fun to use. However, we will be removing and reworking abilities that are just a little finicky or not very fun to use. And we're going to try to make every class have a lot of value and just be fun to play. But you'll have to see that next time. I'll see you then.